We're good? All right, welcome everyone to the Lincolnville Select Board meeting. It is December 11th, and this is hot on the heels of the special town meeting that was just hosted at the school. And before we get going tonight, Karen, would you care to read the quote of the evening?
I'd be glad to. An optimist stays up to see the new year in. A pessimist waits to make sure the old one leaves. Bill Bond.
Thank you. And I'd like to open the podium for any non-agenda items. Seeing no one rushing up to the podium, let's move along to the administrator's report.
Unfortunately, I have a few more agenda things that aren't on the agenda that need to be announced. Dog licenses all expire at the end of the year. Please save yourself some money and not the hassle of chasing you further. And if you want a dog, license it by the end of the year. You can do that online, or you can do it here in the town office during normal business hours. Just to let you know, we terminated our relationship with Earl's Property Management, who was doing our who had the mowing contract and the cleanup. Hadn't shown up since October, and if you look, nothing's been cleaned up here. We have a separate contractor lined up to clean up before
Okay.
Again, for anybody who's listening, that was Earl's Property Management that we terminated our agreement with. The state of Maine apparently has entered into a purchase and sale agreement with the owners of the Rockland's Lobster Shack. Possible acquisition of that property after the due diligence period. Presumably, it's been part of their parking study, so they can more to be announced from more. They can tell us more. Cable TV is ending as of December 31st, 2023. Notices have been sent by the cable company that it still has cable. You have some main option. There are multiple options out there, but just want to announce that some people still have it, some people still watch it, some people still watch you all on that game.
Aww, our laugh. Well, not our real laugh.
Canceled again.
It was part of your packet, but I thought I would announce it as part of the non-agenda items. The board authorized, or I told the board we were going to apply for some permanent speed feedback signs from DOT.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, they were offering to provide it to the town for installation. They have now offered it to a number of towns to not only provide it, but to install it and maintain it in perpetuity.
Wow.
That's great.
So
that's great.
Is that at locations of their choice, or
it'll be Route 1 somewhere?
Both of them on Route 1?
Yeah. It'll be a sandwich type situation. Yeah, they we had reached out to them about possibly doing one in the center, and said this time we eligible.
Yeah.
So just and maybe this isn't the time to expand on this, but now that they're taking over those two that we potentially were going to have to pay maintenance for and installation and everything, can we move forward with one for the center?
Probably not unless we budget for it, because those are expensive units.
Okay.
To say the least. To purchase.
We'll see if we can.
Multiple thousands.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe we can lean on them in the future.
Put that on the list.
Yeah. Yep.
Third page.
And we've been notified by our website, not host, creator, something that we utilize, that these are going up fairly substantially, and that there's an option for making it more compliant with certain rules and regulations for websites. More to come on that one, but just to let you know that it's coming down the pipe.
Okay.
I think that's it besides the agenda.
All right, any other questions for David on the administrator's report? All right, let's move along to upcoming meetings and announcements.
All meetings are here at the town office unless announced otherwise. The Heart and Soul team meets Tuesday, December 12th at noon. That's at the library. Conservation Commission is scheduled to meet Thursday, December 14th, 4 p.m. Heart and Soul team will be meeting on Thursday, December 14th, 6 p.m. here at the town office. Heart and Soul team will meet again on Thursday, December 21st, 6 p.m. here at the town office. The town office will be closed in observance of Christmas holiday on Monday, December 25th. Select board will be meeting to approve a treasurer's and payroll warrant only on Tuesday, December 26th at 5 p.m. Lakes and Ponds Committee is scheduled to meet Tuesday, December 26th, 7 p.m. Planning board is scheduled to meet Wednesday, December 27th, 7 p.m. Town office will be closed again in observance of New Year's Day on Monday, January 1st. Recreation Commission is scheduled to meet Monday, January 8th, 4 p.m. And the select board will meet next in regular session on Monday, January 8th, 6 p.m.
Whew.
A lot going on.
And there we are, into the new year. And with that, are there any upcoming community events anyone wishes to share? All right, let's move along to the meeting minutes from the 27th of November.
I move the board approve the November 27th, 2023 meeting minutes as presented. Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much. And moving rapidly along, we have a number of, well, first, David, would you care to give a bit of a prelude to this,
Sure.
given the evening's events?
Yeah, for anybody that is in the room that wasn't over in the school, that would be like down here in Fairfield. We had a special town meeting at 6 o'clock, well attended, to say the least. And the moratorium ordinance passed handily. So is that enough of a prelude?
I think so. And so we have a number of community interest forums before the board, and David and I discussed basically being prepared for whatever our legislative body gave us direction. You know, obviously, if it failed for some reason, then we could have a different conversation, but obviously it passed with wild popularity. And as such, and because the clock is quite literally ticking now, the board has a lot of work to do. And so there are a few tasks and associated motions with those tasks that I would recommend that the board act on tonight in order to kick that big flywheel over and start the work. As such, since we don't have an active land use committee, I think the board needs to draft a very clear and specific charge for the land use committee to revive it and then hopefully populate it tonight. Sound good? And as such, I would ask for an initial motion.
Move that the town administrator prepare a draft charge to the land use committee for the board to consider at its January 8th, 2024 meeting that will task the land use committee with preparing draft land use ordinance amendments for board consideration that will address the items of concern set forth in the newly adopted Town of Lincolnville Major Non-Residential Development Project Moratorium Ordinance.
Whew, so moved.
Second.
And seconded. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you all very much. And having done that, we specifically have interest in the land use ordinance from fortunately and unfortunately, I guess we have more individuals interested in participating than we have spots on the committee. And so, so this board has the difficult task of picking amongst the really qualified individuals who are going to populate the committee with, and with that, I would accept a motion.
My recommendations are, I move to appoint Andy Young and Earl Brown as regular members to the Land Use Committee with the terms expiring June of 2026. Terry Moulton, Jamie Francono. Yes, okay. As regular members to the Land Use Committee with terms expiring June of 2025, and Jeannie Hollingsworth as a regular member to the Land Use Committee with a term expiring June of 24, and Rick McLaughlin and Lois Lyman as alternate members to the Land Use Committee with terms expiring June of 24.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Robin, you look like you had a, yes.
Well, I would like to discuss some of the people choices, just because when I was looking through it, I was noticing that several of the people already are serving on current boards.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to make sure that we weren't necessarily piling too much work on someone that was going to, for instance, and this is the only reason why I would say, like Earl Brown, because he's currently planning board, I just wondered if it would be better to not have him on this board too, because the planning board has so much to do that's closely related to this. Not that there's a conflict. I don't want you to think I'm saying that, but I was just thinking, I guess you could look at it as going either direction. Either it's synchronistic and making everything more efficient, but I was thinking maybe that he would be better off focusing on planning board, and some of the people who applied who aren't currently on the planning board but have been former members of the planning board might be good to have on the land use committee as opposed to him in particular. Nothing against him. I want to make sure you realize that.
Well, like I said, when I started before the nomination, these are my recommendations.
Yeah.
I think it would be an individual's own decision of whether they're taking on too much or not. And it would be their decision to say, hey, I've bitten off too much. I also look at what I know about their past and what they've done for the town before. And that brings me to my recommendation. And I'm sorry, but that's what I've got.
Well, our recommendations were, there's a lot of overlap, let me say.
Yeah, Steve.
I was going to say, my recommendations, I'd already drafted them out. They're slightly different than Kern's. The same names, just in slightly different order.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I seconded his motion, because it matched up what I had laid out.
Well, just, on another topic, not on me, but I just wanted to point out during this motion, I'll be abstaining from voting in the discussion as well, just because I don't want there to be an appearance of bias to start off this whole ball rolling.
Sure. Okay.
Well, I don't understand the appearance of bias.
Oh, well, because someone in this room also is who submitted a volunteer community form. He and I are both filed from the same office, candidacy from the same office. And that guy right there, yeah. So I don't want to start off with some sort of bias and type of vote. There we go.
So that's your decision, Mike.
Also, Mike anyone can abstain from any vote without reason.
Oh, okay.
You're not obligated to
Right, yeah.
explain.
You don't have to vote or explain why you don't want to.
I mean, in theory you should, but there could be personal or confidential reasons why.
But you're a nice person. I thought
Yeah, but I hear your point. I don't share those concerns. I feel that I feel like the expertise the knowledge and experience come to bear here, and I could support that motion.
So barring that, my only other, it's not a concern, I don't know what to call it, but I was thinking that it made sense either to have Tiffany Wolf on, because she's currently on the comprehensive plan committee, review committee. I thought it would make sense to have a presence of someone from that committee on there. And I don't think anybody else that was mentioned.
Terry served for a long time and actually recently resigned from the comprehensive plan review committee, and so she served on the comprehensive plan review committee for a very long time, and so at least from that knowledge base and experience.
I didn't see that in her thing. It actually might have been there.
Well, yeah.
Little trouble with her handwriting.
Yeah, sure.
I think I got
Sure.
it. So.
Any other questions? Any other discussion? If there's no further discussion, all those in favor? And one abstention? Okay, thank you very much. And again, thank you. So we do have a few of the folks in the room here that did put in community interest forms. Does the board want to chat with them, or do you wish to address the board at all? You don't have to. Okay.
Well, I thought the charge was well written. That's really what my question was going to be, was what is the charge of the committee and how?
Rick, could I get you to come up to the podium? Thanks, sorry. That way folks at home can, and YouTube.
20 Lily Lane. And yeah, I thought that I was interested in what the charge was. I assume there'll be more beyond the
Yes,
moratorium, but for right now, it's,
Yes.
yeah.
yes,
And
yeah,
everybody knows that ordinance writing is, carefully done.
yeah,
I was only on one ordinance, and that was a harbor ordinance. It took us 2 years, and that's puny compared to the land use ordinance.
yeah.
But I think amendments to the land use ordinance, I think it's a good outline structure, and I know it pretty well. I've been an applicant, on the commercial site plan review, so amendments would be the best way to do it.
Yep, yeah, so this won't be the last conversation we'll all be having, that's for sure, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you, I think.
Or condolences, which are, yes.
Just another question.
Yeah.
Maybe this isn't the right time, but I know Mid-Coast Council of Governance had, my memory tells me that they were available as a resource to help with this.
Excellent segue. So hinging off of the first motion and the second motion, so while the charge is being prepared for us to consider, I think it is a smart move to get the newly populated land use committee started by familiarizing themselves with our ordinance. So I think we should start there. But so once we dispatch with that motion, then we'll address your question. So I will entertain that motion, please.
Then I would move that the town administrator forward a copy of the moratorium ordinance and the current land use ordinance to members of the land use committee, with a request that the committee begin, while awaiting the board approved charge, to individually get familiar with both ordinances in preparation for the work as a committee.
So moved
Second.
and seconded. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Thank you very much. That way the work can begin. And so to your question, Robin, and to Rick's point, this is quite the undertaking, and it's of great importance. I think we've been saying this all along, that we get it right. And so the final motion in this particular agenda, I think, speaks to that. in considering looking at who we may want to consider bringing in as help to ultimately help craft and bring home the final language, just as we had some help drafting that moratorium ordinance, something similar to that. Does that make sense? And it could be any number of entities or, but I think if we task the town administrator to reach out to a number of land use planning consultants, whether it's the Mid-Coast Council of Governments or
MMA should have resources available.
yeah, that way our town administrator can bring those to us and we can discuss them and hopefully dovetail that effort moving forward with all this. That sound good? All right, I'll entertain a motion then, please.
Move to have the town administrator reach out to land use planning consultants regarding assisting the town with exploring and drafting land use ordinance amendments and that prospective consultants be brought forth to the board for consideration.
Moved and well seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you all very much. And thank you to everyone that put in community interest forms. And if you didn't get appointed, please stay in touch because this is an evolving conversation too. So, and we appreciate it. All right. Moving along.
Thanks very much. You can
Yeah,
stay.
that's.
You're welcome.
I always stay and watch.
You are welcome to stay.
Please do.
So we were to have John Powers from Northeast Mobile Health here. David, would you care to speak briefly on this at all?
John gave me a call earlier today and said, would it be possible for me to postpone my attendance at this meeting because the Rockport Select Board was going to be considering purchasing the ambulance. Wish to attend that if they had some questions or concerns regarding the current service. That was not complete news to me, but almost complete news to me. I went and looked at the Rockport Select Board packet, and it appears that our group may be, whether we like it or not, dissolving or going in different directions. The Rockport Select Board, and by now has already been asked and already done it, I don't know. But being asked to ask their manager to sign an agreement with our ambulance vendor to purchase a new ambulance for purchase in January 2025. That's how long it takes to get an ambulance. New one, and they are looking for this. I believe it is prudent for this board to make plans for a potential need to operate our own ambulance service, as of the start of 2020, fiscal year 2025. So that would be July 1 of 2024. Which is coming right up.
If I may, while I have great respect for other select boards to govern their towns as they see fit, as the casualty of two other communities' decision-making paradigms, I mean, essentially two other towns are making choices for us in their decision-making process. And I feel that it would have been the respectful thing to do for those policymakers from our partner communities who we've been working with for a very long time now to have done us the courtesy of communicating directly with us regarding the trajectory and the path. I have been nerding out to the only way I've been staying on top of this is by watching their select board meetings and watching Camden's workshop regarding this. There's been no official channel flow of information to this board. We're basically just living with the consequences of whatever the Rockport Select Board decides to do tonight. And it hasn't been the habit of this board to make reactive choices like that. I hope that we can pull together some options for our taxpayers so that we're not basically being left with one expensive choice. But yeah, I guess I'm really disappointed that our partner communities chose to not include us, not that we deserve a part in their decision making, but at least to have done us the courtesy of sending us some kind of official communication so that we can make appropriate plans for our town and govern our town in the best way that we know how. Yeah,
I'm
please.
just wondering, was this all wrapped up in an interlocal agreement, I think?
No.
Or not,
Mm-mm.
what? Okay, so we don't have any control of the language
No, each of
that governs.
right.
their
Each of the
behavior.
4 communities contracts with the Camden Rockport. Each has an individual contract with Northeast Mobile Health Services.
Yeah, okay.
And for the past 8 or 10 years, our contracts have all mirrored one another.
Yeah.
They've been the same with the exception of where it says town of, they answer Lincolnville. And where the dollars for our contribution, they was writing, they were looking for Lincolnville. And what had happened in the past was that amount would be determined that was from Northeast. What our 4 towns would subsidize that service or pay for that service. And by basically a handshake agreement from 10 years ago, when we chose to go with the current vendor, then they did that by population. Not based on calls, just population in comparison to others. And every town had its ability to choose its own destiny by signing the contract or not. Yeah. And our current contract goes through June 30th of 2025. We have another 18 months and 2 months with our current contract. It does allow communities the ability to get out under certain circumstances and certain notices, and it also allows the veteran to So, likely, if one community chooses to leave, there will be likely discussions between maybe 3 to.
Yeah, Steve.
Am I correct that Hope has had some involvement in this as well? It seems I've heard multiple discussions that have been around Camden and Hope attending meetings or being on the Camden Select Board's agenda regarding EMS for Camden being provided.
Hope is starting the first responder service, different from EMS. Under the auspices of the Camden Fire Department, because Camden Fire got their first responder whatever last year or so, and it's much easier to go under another than it is to start your own. So that they've certainly done that, and I don't believe. I too have watched a number of other community meetings. I don't believe there's necessarily an intention to leave out others, but there hasn't been any ask if you want to come on board on that.
I didn't get the impression that the boards are, I think they're just not aware of the results of their actions in the way they're going about it.
One community in certain, who did ask their manager if what this meant for the towns of Lincolnville and Hope.
Mhm.
And the response given was, after 2 years, it might be in Lincolnville and Hope's best interest just to contract with us.
Well, I guess we'll have that as a future conversation of what our options are, huh?
Well, we certainly will learn more as some of our neighboring communities move forward. But I would anticipate probably we'll see an upcoming agenda with some sort of exploration as to what our options are or may be.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
the representative, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
So the representative from Northeast, he wants to reschedule?
Oh, yes.
Okay, good.
He didn't want to not come.
Yeah, but I get that.
Yeah.
Get it.
He needed to, yeah.
Only in one
He
place
needs
at
to be
once,
there.
and,
Yep.
They were on the same line.
Yep, okay. All right, thank you, everybody. Moving along, David, would you care to speak to this? We are talking about the street opening permit for underground utilities on Heather Hill.
Much earlier this year, a property owner on Heather Hill Road here contacted us about running electrical conduit or utility conduit underneath the Heather Hill Road. The former public facilities director gave the go-ahead for that. The public facilities director departed. The person doing the installation contacted us. The code enforcement officer, because we were a little short-staffed, went out and did an inspection while that was done. But they did a great job. The road has been put back together for months now. Right? Yeah. And then property owner has requested, or CNT has requested the property owner for official notification from the town, and that went in my lap, and it's unclear in the statute who actually has that authority, so it's best to get the select board to grant that, and then be done. Put in the file with all the other utility location things, and sign a letter so that CNT can actually do their work, and no owner can have power and not run off the generator.
There you go. Does the board have questions for the property owner? Any other questions for David? Would someone care to make a motion then, please?
Move that the select board grant permission to Andrew Marchetti to perform a road cut at 60 Heather Hill Road, approximately 500 feet northwesterly of the Lincolnville Road, for the purpose of installing underground utilities under the Heather Hill Road for a new home currently under construction. Town administrator be authorized to inform the Central Maine Power Company and other utilities of this permission and if this permission be recorded with the other utility location permits. Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you all very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow. Great. You're welcome.
We've tied a bow on it.
Take care.
Nope, we're not. Nope. Moving along, we have establishing the 2024 harbor fees and qualified mooring inspectors. So we have the harbor application in here, the fee schedule, as well as notes from the harbor committee. And the recommendation is to keep the fees consistent, which, after talking with a couple of the harbor committee members, I understand their reasoning that, our fee structure's sort of on par with other harbors with greater amenities than ours. So I don't disagree there. The one question I wanted to ask the board and also our harbor master is we have had issues with individuals successfully completing their mooring inspections. Is that true?
Most definitely.
So my question to the board is, and the town administrator and the harbor master, is would it be appropriate to add a note or an additional fee in here with a failure to inspect within a certain time frame, and to double the fee, and if non-compliance after X period of time, to have that mooring removed? I guess my question is, how do we provide teeth both in the information that's going out quite soon to our harbor users and giving them plenty of notice that we intend on, enforcing our various regulations, and having something that is, has teeth and is enforceable.
The harbor ordinance requires that mooring inspections be submitted by July 1.
Yeah.
The harbor ordinance does allow for a late fee to be established by the select board for those that don't submit in a timely fashion. We might want to, so I think you can't change, this board can't change the ordinance after it to be changed, but you can establish a late fee. The other opportunity may be to establish that those who don't pay their fee don't get a privilege. You think that's established in the ordinance, but I think that can be articulated a whole lot clearer to people. But I think that we also ought to, during our workshop that you've got scheduled with the harbor committee, get a lot of the issues that are out there and things that are nebulous in the ordinance better addressed, so that there is clearly an enforcement provisions that are more punitive than dollars. For some people, dollars don't, I won't say they don't matter, but they don't matter. You would think the loss of their boat because of the mooring breaking would be enough incentive to maybe have a mooring checked annually, but apparently it's not for some people. And if you, I hate to be Mr. Hard Guy, but if you can't do the right thing, you shouldn't have the privilege. If you can't license your dog,
Agreed.
we talked about dog licenses, you shouldn't have a dog.
Yep.
If you can't do the right thing with your mooring, you shouldn't have a mooring in Lincolnville Harbor.
Yeah, well, and it's not just your own boat, it's the ferry, it's other people's boats, it's swimmers, it's
the poor harbor master that gets called when somebody's boat's floating up the bay, who's thinking of mowing his own lawn on a Saturday afternoon in the summer, and he's like, wonder where I'm gonna pick that one up. I mean, it just, with ownership of anything comes responsibilities.
Yeah.
And you need, and and Chair Dunn said, it's bad enough that you would know your responsibilities, but when your actions have impacts on others, you really need to stop.
So if the mooring inspection form is not returned,
You should assess the late fee. It's allowed for, once you set it, it's allowed for in the ordinance. And if the late fee is not paid,
So,
no fee, no ticking, no laundry.
yeah,
so if the fee isn't paid either, then the mooring comes out.
It's dropped to the bottom.
yeah, I guess that's my
Yeah.
question is, looking into this season, so we assess the late fee, then what? And if there's still non-compliance,
all year would be my answer. I mean, you haven't
Okay.
paid your fee.
Okay,
Okay.
And if you paid your fee, you still need to have your inspection, you know, these
Yeah.
are, there's little wrinkles or little, I hate to say loopholes in the ordinance, but
Yeah.
there are things that aren't that clear that should be tightened up so that people know what they're very clearly, what their responsibilities are and not.
yeah, Robin, I see, yeah,
Either way.
yeah,
Yeah, well, that's what I was wanting to get at. We have two things. We have the inspection and just the rental, if you will. Like, they're two separate things that somebody, well, that's why I wanted.
Yeah, we in the town control the bottom. It belongs to the state of Maine. The state of Maine, through their statutes, have allowed the town to regulate what the place for mooring is not. In Lincolnville Harbor, Lincolnville voters have adopted an ordinance that specifies an inner harbor, an outer harbor, and a coastal harbor. So basically, from the Camden town line to the Norfolk town line, fall under our jurisdiction, and that is the harbor master. We assign each individual that applies that we have space for mooring location. Typically, it's where they've been before, because some ones just stay year after year after year. The ordinance also says that thou shalt have a mooring inspection done by a qualified mooring inspector.
which we approved.
Get to set, and then the mooring inspector is supposed to complete the mooring inspection form that we give them in January. Return it to us by July 1, so that we know that that mooring has been inspected at least once this year and is satisfactory for the vessel that's attached to it. So there are at least two things that they're not doing on different time frames.
On different time frames.
Right.
So,
Because they have to apply, excuse me, for renewal, and I don't have one state with me, but like the third Friday in March or April. they
Right.
need to do this, or they have to, last year was March 10th, so it's the second Friday in March. And then they have another month after that where they can still renew by paying double the fee. And I know that the warrant inspections have to be in by July 1.
But the town of Lincolnville doesn't own the moorings, individuals own the mooring. And so
okay,
if they don't want to inspect them, they could keep them in their front yard if they want to, but they can't keep them in our harbor.
okay, so we would physically pull the moorings.
We have the harbor master has the authority by statute to remove a mooring or drop it to the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, floating stuff off.
Yeah.
So,
Will we be covering this in the workshop?
I imagine,
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah, I imagine. Steve?
So
you-
I was just, want to make sure I had clarification. What we're contemplating is, number one, if they don't pay for their mooring on time, they pay double. And then if they don't have their mooring inspection, which is a different time frame, they get a penalty, whatever that fee is. And then I think I'm hearing if by the following year it hasn't been inspected, but it comes around to the following March or April, sorry, you don't get you're gonna get declined.
we're going to make sure that our ordinance says that we can actually
Okay,
deny somebody.
that's what I was, okay, perfect.
So do we need to I feel like I've got page blindness, like, do we need to insert that penalty here?
I think if you make a motion to include the fine penalty, whatever the right word is, for the non-inspection of a mooring, we'll make sure it gets on the form somewhere, and that our harbor users are very well notified. And when we do the mail it to them,
Okay.
probably we'll put it in the cover letter, we might even put it in a separate colored flyer that says, hey, you know, something new, look at this.
Okay. Okay,
So these are the current year.
This is what we used in 2020 in current, right, what went out last year, or earlier this year.
yeah, Steve.
So do we have to add, I see the mooring inspection late fee is in the proposed motion. Do we need to add to that proposed motion that if by the next year they won't get a renewal if their mooring hasn't been inspected by March or April of the following year?
So,
I don't think, I got from David that we're not allowed to do that.
It sounds like we have to clean up the ordinances.
All we can do is set the fee.
I think we
have to
need
stop
to
that.
verify that we can do that, and we can will
We'll
include
have
that.
to talk about that.
I see.
Yeah.
And that, we've got until a year from March to do that.
I think we ought to, well,
Nice.
one, I think people ought to comply, and two, I think we ought to notify people that there may be additional consequences that may impact your ability to renew your mooring in future years. You might go back to ground zero, being on the end of the wait list, or not even a sign one. I mean, we do not want to have people that have unsafe moorings in the harbor. They're hazard to everyone.
Right. Not to mention taking, I mean, if they're not inspected or they're not being used, if they're derelict, let's say, and that's part of the reason why they're not being inspected, we have limited real estate and like, let's get people in there using them.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
And, right, and every time we have the harbor master go out and drop a mooring, it's costing money.
Yep. Okay. All right, thank you for that conversation. With all that being said, does someone want to make a motion?
I move that the board adopt the harbor committee recommended harbor fee schedule for 2024, along with the mooring inspection late fee of $250.
So moved?
Second.
Seconded. Is there discussion? You're looking thoughtful, Kern.
well, I just think that that's quite a long time from if the fee that's being charged for non-submission of mooring inspection, it's like a fine. If they've got a year, you know, we already got a due date of when it's due. And if we're gonna give them a year to pay the fine, I think it's a long time.
No, they don't have a year to pay the fine. There's specific windows, correct?
Okay, I guess
I'm not really 100% sure, but back up to select person Lee's question. The mooring inspectors, some moorings are pulled annually. We've got a number of people that have a mushroom anchor. It's just it. And hopefully refurbished before it's set down there. But a number of the mooring inspectors line up, you know, 8 or 10 moorings, maybe a lot, 6 or 8, come and do all 6 or 8 in one fell swoop, and then submit the forms in to us. And usually because everybody has their mooring in, or puts them in Lincolnville, Belfast, Stockton, wherever, you know, what's the deadline in those communities? These mooring inspectors are pretty slamming in the spring.
Yep.
I think that's fair.
Yep.
That there's got to be some window of reasonableness, when that gets done. And then somebody as of July 1 has got to make sure that, you know, and submitted is, and it's satisfactory, and late submitted is, and it's satisfactory. But yes, there'll be a period of time when people who have a mooring down there that may or may not be inspected.
I was just thinking, I think 6 months is an adequate time frame. I think a year is way too much leeway.
They're gonna have 6 months before the first deadline
Yeah.
that's established in the ordinance to
Yeah.
get it inspected. And then how much time do they need after? I will say one of our mooring inspectors this year discovered a number of mooring inspection forms that he had not submitted on a timely basis on behalf of his clients and sent them all in late.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
But all we're doing tonight is just saying that we're approving the fee schedules.
Correct.
We're not talking about
Correct.
the other stuff, because that's what we'll be doing
Correct.
in the workshop.
Correct.
And I think it'll probably behoove the mooring inspectors to make sure they get the forms in on a timely
Yeah.
basis, because if I hired you to do it and you did it and you didn't submit the form, and I paid you to, and all of a sudden the town.
I'm getting in trouble.
$250
Yeah.
or whatever for
Yeah.
you,
yeah.
Yeah.
there's gonna be a conversation between me and my inspector.
Yeah. Okay. So, any more discussion?
No, sorry,
Okay.
but-
No, don't apologize. All those in favor? Thank you all very much. And I thought we already approved the harbor masters list of qualified. We received it? Okay.
The harbor master by ordinance is supposed to get that to you in November.
And now we have to
You
approve
need
it.
to approve it
Okay.
or amend it by the end of the year.
All right. Having received the list, reviewed it, does anyone have questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move the board approve the harbor master's recommended list of qualified mooring inspectors for 2024.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you all very much. And moving along. So we recently had a very brief joint meeting with the school committee over Zoom to hear the, I would say, initial report of the athletic infrastructure committee. And what resulted from that is some more work that needs to be done. And so there's a draft within our packet. And if that's acceptable to the board, then we should forward it to the school committee for their consideration. So yeah, curious what the board thinks.
Well, I like the idea of course, obviously, it's got to go to the school because we have coordination and budget deadlines and schedules and whatnot. But what interested me is David's suggestion, or question, that if it might make sense to share the mowing responsibilities, and how are we going to do that with the 2 budget cycles in there already.
Right.
And that's what concerns me the most. I mean, they're great suggestions that the committee came up with. But I don't know how we're going to implement that, given the 2, not conflicting, 2 budget schedules that we got.
You can, and if the school committee and the school committee and the select board want to implement the new policy, replace a new policy, it's going to be the transition that's going to be the challenge. I think we ought to consider asking if the school committee wants to not take on the mowing responsibility of the grass that's grown again. That we ought to consider asking them, since they budgeted for it in FY '24 that we're in, that find out what the cost is from the start of the mowing season through to June 30th, 24, and we ask the school committee to pay that freight, so to speak. We'll take on the responsibility of finding the contractor, figuring out getting the work done. And then we'll budget to include that in the town's budget for the upcoming fiscal year. And hopefully the budget gets approved and we smooth sailing after July 1. The challenge is gonna be from whenever you get out there to mow, hopefully in April, through to June 30th. And I don't really know what else
No,
to do.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it sounds like the way to go, but I just hope that the asking is sufficient, because the rest is keep going.
Well,
And
yes.
I do hope when we ask, we get the reply that
Yeah.
we'd like to hear.
Well, I think with, both parties of the agreement, which is what this policy was, it was agreed upon by both parties. Both parties had an understanding of what was required for them for a certain period of time. And if we're going to change the agreement during that certain period of time, somebody's got to come up with a plan. That special town meeting, we appropriated no money for mowing over there.
Right.
Through June 30th.
Right.
If that's going to change, we either need to ask them to give us money, because they've appropriated money for mowing, or for you all to say, do we go to a fundraiser, or do we go to town meeting and ask for maybe thousands it's going to be?
Okay.
Well, the ask can be, this is after meeting with this committee that I was on, and also with a school board member and a stakeholder, meaning the person in the school. It's clearly obvious to me, and it makes sense now why every time we tried to address this with the school, we were met with such opposition. They didn't budget to mow and trim. They budgeted for custodian and how many hours they thought it would. So the custodian is not being paid, and they counted on having their own equipment. Because there's nothing built in there for maintenance of the equipment. Or if there is, it's nil or very little. And the equipment is now in huge disrepair because of, I got to get it right out there, of people using it who are not qualified to use it. That's the politically correct way to say it. Nor do they care to use it. So whatever we ask them for, I don't think is going to match up with what it's going to cost us at all. Well, whatever we ask them for is not going to match up with what they have as a line item to fund it. We've been told flat out, they don't have money to fix it, to fix the mowing equipment. And the same people who did all the damage are the ones that are going to be using it, and they can't even get it done with new equipment. So, and I'm not saying that there weren't, inconsistencies with weather and all of that, but not having someone that can dedicate 8 hours. That facility is going to take a good 8 hours to mow and trim. And that's just mow and trim. If there's other things that need to be done, that's going to need to be budgeted as well. So I personally am not looking for them to be amenable to too much money coming back our way. And I think if you took a look around tonight, when we were over there, you would see how it was previously managed just by looking at curtains, look at the walls, look at the floors, and the list goes on. I think we just need to make the best out of a bad situation. I'm not saying that we don't ask, but I don't want to get an expectation of a year's worth of money or summer's worth of money for a vendor when it's one custodian that they budgeted for and minimal money for maintenance, because it's not going to match up. You know what I mean? It's unfortunate, but now, previous principal was not thinking like we are.
So it seems like the first step is, one, this board needs to agree that we want to ask the school committee to commit to this new draft. And if they do, then we need to have a conversation of how to fund this new vision. Whatever that looks like, whether it's getting some funds for the school or whatever hurdle. So I guess that's, you're just looking for general concurrence at this point, right, David?
Well, I was obviously scribbling some notes that at the joint meeting you had, and I know that before anybody can budget for doing something, you need to know what you're doing and what you're not doing.
Right.
And so I attempted to take the existing oversight policy and mark it up as I heard it,
Yep.
so that it would be clear or clearer to people, so that, well, you see, the school responsibility to put a big line through mowing and weed whacking.
Yep.
They're not going to do it. And under Recreation Commission responsibility, added the lines of mowing and weed whacking, because that's going to become a sound function.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's the biggest change in here.
Mm-hmm.
If I missed something else about, you know, trash can maintenance, they emptied the trash can. They put the trash cans up and empty them, we don't.
Mm-hmm.
If there's other things that we're, you know, we want to take on, or they want to shed the responsibility for, we can get almost anything done. We just need to know who's doing it, who's got to budget the money.
Right.
You know, you mentioned trash cans and things of this nature, but things of that nature. I don't know if I made mention of it or not, but all summer, the trash cans didn't get emptied. That was supposed to be taken care of by the, you know, it's just that list goes on and on. My perception of taking the facility back involves taking the facility back. Garbage cans, you know, check the place, all of that. They got to have some responsibility, I get it, but how are we going to hold them accountable? I personally walked up there numerous times this last summer, took pictures so that I would have ammunition to come up with my own opinion and be able to justify it. And it's a crying shame that the shape that place is in and was in for the summer. So, and that's by my opinion. Maybe I expect too much, but those are all valid points, David, and they're all things that need to be talked about with the school, but with I feel, a sterner hand. If they're going to have any responsibility, they've got to follow through with it. They can't, you know, we can't be coming back to them and saying, well, I guess we got to take this over too. Because I don't want to take this grass thing over, but we have to. You know, it's an extension of the town.
Well, the school's an extension of the town, but if there are things on here that, well, litter and trash can maintenance, if you think we ought to do it, now's the time for us to put a line through that and on the school responsibilities and move it to someplace else.
But
The
it's,
Recreation Commission.
but it's, do I think we should do it? No, but it's stuff left over from school events that stayed there the majority of the summer. And stuff getting kicked over, and kids on the weekends or nights over there just tipping the garbage cans over and things of that nature, dogs getting into it, you know, that type of thing. So yeah, it's their responsibility. If, you know, they're having an event there and the garbage can gets full, empty it. But we do have to have that conversation with them. We can't man that thing every time they have an event. I get it. But, and do, to your, you know, do we want to take that over? No, but we got to consider all of that.
Well, yeah, Robin.
Well, I was wondering, is part of the problem that the school kind of, doesn't really, they're not active during the summer. And so, like, is it that as soon as the school year, academic year is pretty much over, the custodian isn't focused anymore on what's going on in the athletic fields, like to empty the trash cans? Doesn't think
That
of
could
activities
very,
happening, and so.
that could very well be, but it doesn't say in the current agreement that once school is out, you don't have to worry too much about it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Right,
It
right, I
doesn't
was
say
thinking
that.
more the converse, that we
Yeah.
needed to say in
And-
the agreement that
Yeah.
if they're doing this, it's throughout.
It's through the calendar year.
Right, calendar year, not school year.
Well, so, yeah, just taking a step back from this, I guess, I think the town can and should commit to making sure it happens the right way. But I guess I want to take a step back, and I feel very unsatisfied by that 10-minute little conversation that we had over Zoom with the school committee. I was confused why this report was being presented in the middle of a school committee's agenda as opposed to the select board, given that the select board were the ones that created and charged the athletic infrastructure committee with their work in their first place. And so, I also feel like there's still more work, that the report is not complete.
I was just gonna say that.
And, I know that a lot of work was done, but it's not complete. And so I'm feeling like another conversation with the school, like a workshop, a one-on-one, where we're not sort of thrown into one of their agendas or they're thrown into one of our agendas, where we can sit and have these conversations like that we've tried to in the past a couple of times, and those weren't productive. But I feel, it's a different school committee, different select board, perhaps we can sit down together and talk about what works and what doesn't work, and really look at this draft as we've amended it and say, can we commit to this as it's drawn out? Do you understand that this means trash removal year round? And, and can we commit to this for a calendar year and see if there's success or not? In addition to talking about the finances and how we're going to pay for this. That seems like it would be a reasonable thing to do, is, if we're pretty much happy with this draft, send it to the school committee along with a request to set up a workshop to then review it together. Yeah, Steve.
So I back up to, how do we get the charge completed? They're disbanded officially.
Right.
So how do we get this charge completed? Deal with the draft of the change to the policy and get that all done before budget.
Right.
I think the workshop is the right idea, but it probably needs to be people that were on this committee.
The
Board, us,
us.
the people on that committee, and some of the school board as well, to workshop that. So I'm just thinking that workshop that we're mentioning, it needs to be the school board, this board, and the few people that were extra, the stakeholders, the Recreation Commission members that were on this committee, to get to a final answer.
Yeah, I mean, we really need that charge number 4.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the critical element that we need help with, is time frame and dollars assigned to all of these within the recreation area's oversight. What is
most all of that has been achieved. But I refuse to be the one to write the
Yeah.
recommendations.
Yeah.
So for a number of reasons, I felt that my participation as a select board member, there are some things that I just shouldn't have been doing.
Mm.
I made suggestions, and I'm not dishing on anybody. And, you know, that can be achieved, but our time frame needs to be extended to do that. It wouldn't take much. Although a couple of the things, it was tough to get anybody to commit to, and I'm not saying committee members, I'm saying anybody to commit with the estimates.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all the people who, Tom Fence gave an estimate of repairs of our fence in regards to pictures. They never came on site.
Mm.
So, you know, they said they didn't have time to come look at it, and if we'd send them pictures of the, or maybe it wasn't Tom Fence, it was a fence company, a local fence company, but they said if we could take some pictures of the affected areas, they would send us a quote. And so we went around, I think one of the members went around and took pictures of all the areas of concern and sent them to them, and then we had to bug them to get a price on it.
Mm-hmm.
It was a extremely low price is what we thought, but again, that's not in the report. So that's why I just said draft, because
Yeah.
hey, this is not ready.
Yeah. Yeah, Steve.
The only other item I had was I was looking around online and looking at other schools and stuff and where that facility is, and part of me has no problem with the town taking it over, but if you go to other school grounds with those types of things and stuff or whatever, the schools take care of it.
Right.
Well, they've got
They budgeted for it and they take care of it.
they budgeted for people.
Right.
You know,
It's gonna be paid for one way or the other. It's gonna be paid for out of one budget or the other budget, and so this decision is simply changing whose budget pays for it, which hopefully means this board has more teeth over making sure it's done versus the history we've got.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my only thing there is, are we doing this just because historically it just hasn't been doing well, or are we doing it because we really think it's the right way to do it?
Mm.
And I'd rather do it the right way and.
Mm.
well, you know something, Steve, I agree 100% with what you're saying and how other schools are doing it and how it should be done.
Yep.
But you know.
Well, maybe we need to take a step back and maybe we need to revise the charge to the Athletic Infrastructure Committee, go from where we are now to where we need them to go, and then get back to this conversation and have a workshop with the school committee where we can say, look, here's what's happened in the past, here's what we've tried, here are the numbers we're looking at, here's what other municipalities do in terms of management. What do you want to do? Because it needs to be taken care of. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I would appreciate the help of this ad hoc committee to help us get to that informed place rather than, you know, kind of vague generalities and a lot of frustration. So that being said, do we need to on our January 8th agenda look at a revised charge for the Athletic Infrastructure Committee?
If you want to do more,
Yeah.
you're done.
Yeah.
The school committee and the select board put them together,
Right.
and that was done.
Right,
And I will say, that the committee, the reason it was at the school committee meeting, kind of because I pushed them to the school committee meeting,
gotcha.
no offense to the school committee, but I thought it was more likely to get 5 of you to show up to the school committee meeting than based on past history. That
Uh-huh.
them show up to the meeting.
It made sense.
Yep. All right. Yeah,
And not to put the pressure on all of you, but the clock is ticking on February
yes,
12th, I think, or something around there. You're going to get next year's budget. I know the school's working on theirs, so that's the first week of May. I know that we're working behind the scenes on some of ours,
yeah.
and if we don't know what y'all want to do, you get the request with a 0 in it.
Well, to your point, Kern, that it wouldn't take very long. I mean, the revised charge very simply could, obviously elect chair, submit all of that stuff, but it's basically, we need them to do number 4, everything within number 4. And so what sort of timeline do you think would be reasonable for a turnaround on that? A month? 2 months? Month and a half? 60 days?
And then,
45 days?
if there is success with meeting, we could probably do it in a month and a
Okay.
half.
Okay.
Do we even vote on that charge at our,
Reassess the charge.
that last meeting this month we had, which is
The warrant only?
meeting?
I think you could probably make a motion tonight to incorporate what you want to skinny the charge down to, and a new deadline, and ask them to continue if they're willing to, and if they're not,
All right,
have your answer, and if they,
Yeah.
there's probably not much sense of waiting another 2 weeks. I mean, they may not meet in the next 2 weeks, but they can only go to the meeting schedule for after the holiday or something.
all right. Do you want to make that motion? To amend the athletic infrastructure committee charge?
Yes, I move to amend the athletic infrastructure committee charge to extend their service through the end of January for the explicit purpose of completing item number 4 in the charge.
So moved. Do a second.
Second.
Seconded. Discussion.
You have a question?
Yes.
Okay, it seems as extending the charge takes both committees. Yeah. Takes
Yeah, we-
select board action and school committee action.
Yes.
So do we have a mechanism to get their input?
Then we'll forward this to them, and if it's
See if we can
amenable,
get
then
that.
it's a go.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. All right, so if there's no further discussion here, all those in favor? Thank you very much. And so we can ask our town administrator to forward this to the school committee
Gotcha.
and go from there.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you all for that robust discussion.
Well, you're having a robust discussion on that.
Yes.
Does that mean that you're not asking them with doing 3 and 5?
Oh, sorry.
Well, I mean,
It should say 3 through 5.
what person late said a lot of the stuff was done, it just wasn't documented.
Oh,
They indicated it was done.
yeah.
I would
Yeah.
like to amend. can we-
Well,
we haven't-
make
we've already voted
it,
on
make a
it.
new motion to amend
Okay.
that motion.
I move to amend the Athletic Infrastructure Committee charge to extend their service through the end of January for the purpose of completing the original charge.
Okay. So moved?
Second.
Second? More discussion.
Well, my only question is, if we don't like really specify which parts of the original charge that we want to see in writing, will we possibly not see them in writing? Like to Kern's point.
3 through 5.
Right.
Yeah, you just need that, and you're thinking.
Well, we need them to do I mean, you still have to elect a chair, vice chair, submit minutes, all of that good stuff. I think it really brings the point home where it's like, no, we need you to do the work that we asked you to do. No, actually,
To do all of the
really.
pieces,
Yeah,
all of the
yeah.
enumerated items.
Okay, we have a motion in a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? More clear? Okay, great, thank you, everyone. And David, would you care to talk on agenda item number 11?
Sure. Unfortunately, back in one read meeting passed, and at the time he owed $7.70, so he would have owed a month later $7.70. Personal property tax, take the first half, we always do, passed, and so we didn't pay the second half, and we've been carrying $7.07 on the book since that time. It's $1.64 in interest. The law allows the municipal officers, if they found they're too small or too burdensome to economically collect, to take them off the books. And that would be suggested.
Agreed. Would someone care to make a motion?
I move the board determines the $7.70 of personal property taxes owed by Fred Moody to be too small or too burdensome to collect economically, and authorize the municipal treasurer to remove those taxes and any interest from the municipal books, and that the unpaid tax be identified as discharged.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I have a question. Why was he paying such a low amount in 2 halves? I thought our property taxes have a thing where if they're below a certain amount, you just pay the whole thing.
People can pay whatever as they're able.
And it was his personal, or his business
Yeah.
property. It was assessed, because an electrician assessed $1,000 worth of property, which generated $15.40.
Yeah.
Tax
Of personal
So we
property.
don't have a policy or any, you can't just, I mean, there's no, like, we have property in Searsmont, and they just, for the small part, they just send this one bill. It's not the broken in 2 halves, it's all due at the first payment.
I mean, we welcome you to pay
Yeah.
the first payment, but the way the charter sets forth, the taxes can be paid in 2 halves. But we would certainly.
Sometimes we
No, I just
take it
wasn't
however we
aware.
can get it too.
I figured that was the thing.
Yeah.
Because my experience with Searsmont is that we get one bill for
Mhm.
$55 for the year for property tax, as opposed to them sending the 2 halves for that. I thought it was just, it was probably some dollar.
If there's no other discussion, all those in favor? Thank you very much. And it is that time of year to decide on annual performance evaluation of our town administrator. And my recommendation would be that we distribute the forms both electronically or in paper. If folks, I like paper, but I also like paper because I end up printing out all of your forms to have to collate and organize them for discussion, and that we execute his performance evaluation at our last meeting in January. Does that sound good to everyone?
Can we use these papers?
Sure.
This tonight's packet?
Sure, if you want to pop it out and save
Well, I
it.
mean, you know, if you want them in paper, we may as well not print more.
And that, that the forms be returned on the Friday prior to the Monday meeting, so that I can have the weekend to review and collate everyone's.
Can we just email them like these?
Yep.
Yeah, I'd like that.
Yep.
But then she's gonna print them out.
That's fine.
That's all right, that's
I don't have to worry about how to get it to her. I can
No.
just
Well,
do it.
this is true.
Yes, yeah, and email, yeah, sending it as a PDF or whatever is great. Yep, just as long as I get it by that Friday, because I have had people hand it to me like at the meeting, which isn't great.
No good.
Really messes up my ability to do all the averages. All right, anything else on that? Moving along, Kern, do you have an update for us?
I do not.
Mike, do you have an update for
I
us?
do not.
Robin, I feel like you might have an update for us.
I do. The budget committee, the county budget committee is not done yet. It's been the song that never ends kind of thing here. We met for the first time November 18th or something for 4 hours, and they gave us a nice lunch, it's great. And then we have now met 3 more times for either 6.5 or 7.5 hours each time.
Wow.
I personally think that there have been some pretty egregious decisions made by the majority of this board. The last thing that they did was basically voted to, I don't even know that we can do this. They voted to give nothing to the soil and water district, and to what ended up getting agreed by the majority was that it was, rather than that we would either fund them at what the commissioners had requested or vote to disband the agency. And that's what 5 of the 7 members of the committee voted to do. So, and that was a paltry $26,000. I mean, it was the single lowest agency of all the numbers we looked at. I mean, I don't count the audit, you know, it was like 26,000 they would not do, and which basically, anyway. And then they also made this odd decision that really seemed based more on personal feelings, like irritation with the DA. Like they ARPA funds 3 years ago funded an extra admin person in the DA's office, and we found out from further discussions later with the sheriff and the jail how dysfunctional our regional jail is, due really pretty directly to the state limiting DAs. Like, we still have the same number of DAs that we had 35 years ago or something like that. I mean, you know, of our prison population right now, only 9 out of 130 some odd have actually been sentenced. And it goes down pretty directly to inadequate staffing and funding of the DA's office. And the one thing that they had through the ARPA funding was this extra admin person that at least was helping to, you know, move things forward that they could control. Everyone knew from day one of putting that position in that this year it would move into the DA's permanent budget. And yet the budget committee, certain budget committee members refused to accept that. And they were like, we can't fund this. So, to me, that was kind of a breach of faith, good faith, acting in good faith, because it's been assumed for 3 years that it's going to move into their budget. And now we come along as the budget committee and say no. And what they did is literally pull the number out of the air. We went through every department's budget line by line and talked about every single item. I mean, down to, you should change your uniform allowance from 500 to 350 and things like that. And yes, we found maybe $6,000 of that in their budget, but the vast majority of their budget is kind of mandated stuff for dues and periodicals and things, reference materials that they have to keep updated. They come out new every year, and so they have to pay these subscriptions. They have no choice. This one person was ours. It was a person in Worcester County, so it was dedicated to us. It wasn't prorated, for the district. And they just chose to cut their funding by enough that the fat is gone and they can't fully fund this position. And one of the first things they said to us was, we can't touch payroll. And so anyway, I know I'm new at this game, but it just seemed to me like there was some real bad faith happening there. So that's my own, my own personal thing. I don't know. I think we got off on a bad foot the very first meeting due to the county commissioners making a mistake in the first overall comparison sheet. I had come to you guys saying, oh, there's this huge number. They had made a mistake and they'd forgotten. They just didn't realize because they were doing it because they had a new finance director. But she's really good and she has a lot of experience. The new one, but so they were kind of thinking that they were helping by, and they missed doing the offset revenues. And anyway, so they had told us that they had, a $2+ million increase, and several members of the budget committee were then like, we can't take a $2 million increase. This, we have to, we've got to get rid of this. Well, it's now just over $1 million increase when the $400,000 or $500,000 from the mistake about the prison, and also the other thing was a huge difference in the interest. They had the TAN note, and I forget what TAN stands for.
Tax anticipation.
Thank you. Yes, the tax anticipation note, which the interest has been rock bottom. Last year they paid $19,000. Well, they budgeted $19,000, and then when the interest rates finally started going up, they ended up paying like $200,000. And they were just, with interest rates having more recently gone up more, they threw $500,000 in there initially. It's down to $309,000. The one good thing about it taking so long with the budget committee,
You're
they
getting
actually
accurate numbers.
got past December 4th was when they actually got the number from the, got the bids from the banks. So we have a good number now. But still, it's quite an interest. Last year's budget was $19,000. This year's is $309,000.
Oh boy,
So,
we look forward to.
Overall, it's a 9.3% increase from the county.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. Thanks for that. Steve, do you have an update for us? And I don't have an update. All right, moving along, we have the treasurer and payroll warrants to approve and sign.
I move the board approve and sign the treasurer's and payroll warrant.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much. And we have an executive session that we need to enter into prior to our last duty to adjourn. So I will entertain that motion.
I move the board enter executive session pursuant to Title I MRSA Section 4056C, discuss the possible acquisition or disposition of real property.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much.